Kids understand more than we largely give them credit for. This doesn't mean that we should immediately be giving them free rein in terms of the content they consume though. Their brains are still developing, and seeing the wrong thing at the wrong time can stunt them in ways that may not become apparent until years down the line. So of course we should expose them to thoughtful, meaningful media, but at the same time we have to be careful. 3 or 4 too many off-color jokes and overly sexualized characters can send them down a very weird road. I, for one, am all about showing kids scary content. It just has to be the right kind of scary content at the right time. Which is why today we will be honoring the time-honored tradition of telling people not to do things while implicitly saying that it's a-okay if they do. Hello horror heads, and welcome back to the Scariest channel on YouTube, Top 5 Scary Videos. I'm your horror host, Keegan Hughes, and today we're going to be counting down the top 5 scary cartoons kids shouldn't watch. Before we get started, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe for more youthful exuberance. Perfect, let's begin. Coming in at number 5, we've got Being Ian. Here's a Canadian deep cut for all of you. If you've seen this show, please let me know. I have no idea what the viewer base is actually like. It seems like there's a big internet blind spot on it. I loved this series growing up because it was all about a kid who loved to make movies. I aspired to be like Ian, roping my friends into half-assed harebrained productions featuring ninjas and weird video game references, and inexplicably a lot of discussions surrounding the creation of food and drink. Most episodes were built around references to classic movies, stuff like Indiana Jones, Jaws, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Hell, I even think there was a Citizen Kane episode at one point. But one stands out above the rest and really activated my creepy senses. Scream Because I Know What You Did to That Psycho Last Summer. What a title, eh? Of course, it was a big old mishmash of a bunch of well-known horror movies, and this also describes the episode itself. Now, if you're going into a horror movie, you expect people to get killed off in all sorts of creative ways, but when you're watching a cartoon, not likely. Ian and his family are on a road trip, and some odd happenings begin, well, happening. People start disappearing with little to no explanation, and as the journey continues, the disappearances become more sinister. Nods to the movies referenced in the title are everywhere, but a kid is less likely to understand these references. They just see a bunch of horror movie highlights claiming the lives of innocent cartoon characters. In the end, there's a wild reveal akin to the ending of the original Psycho. This is something that nobody in theaters back in 1960 were ready for, let alone a bunch of media illiterate children. So needless to say, kids should be warned before diving into this episode. Thankfully, it ends on a positive note, but still. Coming in at number 4, we've got The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack. My goodness, is this ever a strange show. I think it made a big name for itself largely through hyper-realistic cutaways and stills. The characters are all fun and games from a distance, but once the hypothetical camera cuts in real close, there can be some very disturbing discoveries. We follow the marvelous misadventures of a young lad named Flapjack, raised by a whale and dropped off at a rough and tumbled pirate-filled harbor. Flapjack is looked after by an old pirate named Knuckles, who convinces him to ditch his peaceful life and join him on his quest to find the Candied Island. Lesson 1, don't follow weird old men with promises of candy. There's always something weird going on, and young Flapjack never seems to notice. This often leads to questionable and often disturbing situations. Pirates and other surly sailors aren't often known for their good behavior and friendliness, and this is on full display in the harbor. Crime and violence are abound, and that's only the start of it. There's one particularly famous instance of terror that stems from an odd little cat. Flapjack, being the incorrigible young lad he is, sights a little cat and goes to play with it. Here's what the cat looked like up close. What? On a kids show? This isn't the only creepypasta worthy image to come from the show either. Here's another one with Flapjack himself being the object of terror. And here's one just for fun. A young boy interacting with Flapjack who turns out to be 38. Just look at it. My word, they've really mastered the creepy cut-in, haven't they? I must say, this all seems like a lot for kids to take in. Coming in at number 3, we've got Hey Arnold. Now let's ignore everyone's odd head shapes and the fact that Arnold makes Helga's girlhood tremble for a moment. These are inappropriate topics for another day. Instead, we'll look at some of the wildest, scariest moments from the show supposedly meant for children. Living in an inner city tenement comes with its fair share of modern horrors like crime and poverty and lack of air conditioning, but Hey Arnold packs in more than a few horror movie scares as well. Take the haunted train, for example. Arnold and his friends come across a ghastly locomotive complete with scar-covered, accordion-toting spirit who promises to take them all to hell. Are you allowed to say that on kids' TV? Then there's Ed, the charcoal-scratched, fear-inspiring gangster from years gone by. Introducing kids to a Goonies-style treasure buried by a serial strangler? Nightmare fuel. And of course, there's the Ghost Bride. No cop-out here, this is as real as ghost stories can get. In a cartoon anyways. It's a tale of revenge where a woman literally axe murders her ex-fiance before committing suicide herself. She was even found humming Here Comes the Bride before taking her life. Goodness gracious. So while it seems like a fun and safe cartoon on the surface, Hey Arnold packs in enough urban legends, ghost stories, and hard knocks to convince a kid the world is a scary place. Maybe that's not the worst lesson out there. Coming in at number 2, we've got the grim adventures of Billy and Mandy. Unfortunately, my meme-addled brain can't think about this show without thinking, Buenos dias, Mandy! But I digress. This is a television show about the literal embodiment of death following around a couple of school-aged children. Come on. It's crazy how many different horrors the creators can pack into every episode of this show. Like, the first episode is literally about preventing death from taking a hamster, which is already a weird lesson about the sanctity of life. From there, we meet all sorts of creatures that most folks would probably never want to come face to face with. Jeff the spider desperately pining for Billy's love, an alternate universe Pinocchio who's hungry for flesh, a cosmic terror in Nurgle Jr., and more. These are all monsters that, if shown to the right kid, could cause nightmares for life. And it doesn't stop there. The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy is also chock full of some absolutely wicked body horror. They pull no punches. Often, Billy will end up as a slapstick punchline, but unlike most cartoons, there are bloody, gutty consequences to each action. It's kind of like watching an episode of Itchy and Scratchy if that was a real television program. We get to see Billy's skin pulled back in every which way, his nose gets digested, every limb is grotesquely twisted, his eyes are sometimes pulled out of his head and more. And that's just Billy. Some side characters are subjected to similar levels of pain. All in all, while largely goofy and silly, there are some really funky images and situations here, and some kids might not be able to handle them. Those kids might be the ones who need to see it most though. And finally at number 1, we've got Ren and Stimpy. Speaking of abhorrent images, beloved by kids and animators alike, Ren and Stimpy is a truly unique and fascinating watch. However, there are so many questionable moments and creepy over-detailed close-ups in the show, it's a miracle any child grew up normal, whatever normal means. Now, this series is no stranger to controversy. Throughout its lifespan, Ren and Stimpy had episodes altered, censored, and outright cancelled due to violent, disturbing, and oftentimes lewd content. Years later, there was even a spin-off called Ren and Stimpy Adult Party Cartoon, where they really leaned into those less appropriate themes. I suppose we'll focus on the original run for this video, as it did originally air on Nickelodeon. I mentioned body horror earlier in this video, and when it comes to animated violence that makes you want to jump out of your skin, nobody does it like Ren and Stimpy. One time, Ren literally took a pair of tweezers and yanked the nerve endings out of his gums. Yes, it is as uncomfortable as it sounds. There's a gag where a jester trapped in some gallows cheese grates his arms, which results in a particularly detailed close-up of his bloody elbow, squeezes a lemon on it, and then tops it all off with salt. Why? Other gags include the removal of one's skin to go skinny dipping, the detailed explanation of how exactly Ren will kill Stimpy and his cousin, repeated eyeball poking and gouging, and the extremely grody and detailed depiction of flesh-eating parasites. And that doesn't even begin to cover it all. It's gross, it's creepy, it's unsettling, it's fascinating. Kids love it, but it might mess them up. And the creator is a big child grooming creep. Oh man, oh man. What'd you think of the list? Which cartoon creeps you out the most? Make sure you let me know down in the comments. Speaking of comments, let's take a look at some of your more ostentatious ones from the top 5 scary creepypastas that came to life. Ben Trimble says, Keegan, it's everyone's worst nightmare, a scary story coming to life. Me. Actually, my worst nightmare is waking up without my D@*K. Your what? Dork? Dank? Dunk? Do you fear losing your dunk? I can't read this censored stuff. Kim Ann says, the face of online horror is faceless. Funny how it works out that way, huh? Grace says, I want a shirt that says lanky lad. Hey, DIY is in. Order some fabric paints and a white tee and go nuts. ED Savant says, if you get stabbed 19 times by your best friend, it's not your best friend. At that point, I suppose they sort of become your rival, don't they? And Pixel Over Pixel says, Borger, 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 Borger. Yeah. And that's all the time we have for today. Before I make a slap bracelet with barbed wire, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe for more insane idiosyncrasies. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.